Assalamualaikum. I'm Sharifah Nazura binti Syed from USIM as the presenter for my study titled The Moderating Role of Islamic Corporate Social Responsibility in Shaping Customer Adoption Intention of Islamic Home Financing. So I will run the study based on the conception framework. So the authors in this study, me and my partner Muhammad Azrin Nazri. So let's start to investigate what are the interesting part for my study. As for the agenda, I will start with the introduction, next for the problem segment, research objective, and lastly, I will explain towards the literature review, research design for my study. As for the introduction, in Malaysia, we actually have some of the product of Islamic home financing, namely BBA or Buy Taman Haji and also Musyarakah Mutanakisah. So, Islamic Bank nowadays mostly offered for the BBA home financing. As for the study by Amin et al. Already stated that Bank Islam has been reported that Islamic home financing compensate for more than half of Islamic Bank's total profit. And towards the behavior intention, based on the study by Syed and Nordin 2022, behavior intention is predicted to estimate the determinants that are instrumental in attracting consumer in any service industry. However, building good customer relationship is very difficult. Towards the study of CSR and customer purchase intention, several studies have been done on CSR and customer purchase intention, and it has been observed that element of CSR irrelevantly linked toward the purchase intention. And for the problem statement, based on the study by Bernama 2022, there is a risk of the rejection rate of Malaysian home loans which was already averaging 60% annually prior to the pandemic. And based on the study by Property Guru in 2022, it has been discovered that a shocking percentage of Malaysian citizens cannot afford to buy a home. And 51% of the respondents are ineligible for government affordable housing schemes. Towards the Islamic banking nowadays, there is excessive growth in their expansion. But there is still unclear whether bank customer and citizen will embrace the use of Islamic bank services. Although Islamic bank had offered various types of product based on their customer expectation, however, the market share of Islamic banking services is very low. So this is based on the study by Ahmad et al. 2010. Next, towards the purpose of research objective. So we already proposed the research objective for our study. We have 4 proposed research objectives. Firstly, to analyze the relationship between attitude and adoption intention. Secondly, to investigate the relationship between subjective norm and adoption intention. Thirdly, to investigate relationship between perceived behavior control and adoption intention. And lastly, to examine whether ICSR moderates or not customer purchase intention and actual adoption of Islamic home financing. So based on the research objective, so we propose for the research question. Firstly, what is the relationship that exists between attitude and adoption intention of the customer of Islamic home financing? Secondly, what is the relationship that exists between subjective norm and adoption intention among customers of Islamic home financing? Thirdly, what is the relationship that exists between perceived behavior control and adoption intention among customers of Islamic home financing? And lastly, does ICSR moderates or not the relationship between customer intention and adoption of the Islamic home financing? So this is basically the proposition framework for my study. So as you can see in this figure, the moderating role of ICSR on the adoption intention among customer of Islamic home financing will be analyzed based on this framework. So according to the framework, the independent variables for this study are firstly attitude, subjective norm and perceived behavior control towards the customer purchase intention to adopt Islamic home financing. So the theory that will be used in my study is the compass theory of planned behavior. So as the new proposed moderating variable in my study, it will be the Islamic corporate social responsibility as the moderating role for the intention to adopt Islamic home financing and also actual adoption of Islamic home financing. So based on the proposed research framework, we come up with the proposed hypothesis. So we have 4 proposed hypotheses here. So firstly, for the H1, attitude is positively related to the adoption intention among customer of Islamic home financing. H2, subjective norm is positively related to adoption intention among customers. H3, perceived behavior control is positively related to the adoption intention. And lastly, ICSR, moderate relationship between customer purchase intention and actual adoption of Islamic home financing. As for the literature review, so we already analysed the literature review based on the previous study that are related with my framework. So firstly, towards the theory of DTPB, this is based on the study by Taylor and Todd 1995. So it already stated that DTPB refers to main belief structures that are decomposed into multi-dimensional constructs. As for the attitude based on Alam and Syed 2010, so they illustrate that attitude is determined by the total set of accessible behavior belief. And for the subjective norm, so based on the Alam SIUT, okay, they define the subjective norm as the perceived social pressure to comply with expectation about engaging in the behavior. As for the perceived behavior control, according to Arjen 1999, define perceived behavior control is the extent to which a person feel able to engage in the behavior. And lastly, for the purchase intention, based on the study by Yunus et al. 2015, purchase intention is basically a preference of the consumer to buy the product or service, or in other words, this is another aspect that consumer will purchase a product after evaluation. Next, for the previous study towards the ICSR. So ICSR based on the Bahari and Yusof 2014 is based on the Al-Quran and Sunnah philosophy, and it will guide in all aspects of lives of human. So ICSR framework will be defined the realization of CSR as part of performing the duty of servants of Allah. And towards this CSR and purchase intention, so actually there are several studies have been done towards CSR and purchase intention, and it has been observed that element of CSR relevantly linked with the purchase intention and behavior of customer. And towards the intention and actual adoption, so based on the previous study by Elliott, Bargan 2003, there is actually the consistent relationship between intention and adoption. But they are suggested that they must use a sum moderator to further improve relationship between intention and actual adoption. And lastly, these are the proposed research design for my study. So basically for my study, we will use for the quantitative data collection. So the purpose of the study is basically based on the hypothesis testing, and we use for the survey research. And the sampling design is basically we will use for the convenience sampling, and the time horizon is cross-sectional. Okay, and lastly towards the data analysis, inshallah we will use for the PLS SAM. So that's all the overall for the conceptual framework for my study. So this is basically for the references that are related for my study, and that's all for my presentation. And thank you. Assalamualaikum.